The stars above Titan's hidden colony shimmered like scattered diamonds. Their light filtered through Saturn's pale rings. Inside the subterranean caverns carved deep beneath the moon's ice, humanity clung to survival, not thriving, not rebuilding, merely existing. Captain Elias Vance stood at the observation deck, though there was little to see beyond the blast-shielded glass. He had the habit of staring outward as if the void itself might offer an answer. His scarred hands rested on the rail, his jaw tight. Survival had become routine, but routine was only another word for slow death. The quiet hum of machinery was broken by hurried footsteps. Dr. Celine. Kale burst into the chamber, her dark hair in disarray, eyes blazing with something Elias hadn't seen in years. Hope, or maybe madness. "Captain," she said breathlessly, "you need to see this." Elias turned, suspicion etched across his weathered face. Another malfunction in the comms array? Celine shook her head, clutching a datapad to her chest. Not a malfunction. A signal, a human one. For a moment, silence hung between them. The very word, human signal, was dangerous. No one out here sent transmissions. Silence was survival. To broadcast was to invite annihilation from the Zirath Dominion. "You're certain?" Elias asked, his voice low, almost a growl. Celine handed him the datapad. "It's old, buried under layers of static. But the frequency, it matches Terran military bands. Ones we thought were lost during the fall." Elias scanned the jagged waveform dancing on the screen. It was faint, broken, repeating. A ghost's whisper. His chest tightened, memories of fire raining across. Earth's sky surged back the day the Zirath burned humanity's homeworld. He had been a young soldier then, powerless to stop the slaughter. He forced the memory down. "Where's it coming from?" "A derelict outpost on Dion," Celine replied. "Coordinates match a classified Terran vault. It could be nothing." Or, her eyes gleamed, it could be everything. Elias exhaled slowly. "You understand what chasing this could mean? If we expose ourselves—" "They already think we're extinct," Celine cut in sharply. "This signal could be a weapon, a ship, an AI core. Something we need. Elias, we can't keep hiding down here forever." Her words struck like a blade. She wasn't wrong. Their people were dwindling, every year fewer births, more malfunctions in their aging systems. Supplies stretched thin. Hiding was safety, but it was also death by inches. Elias's eyes darkened. "And if it's a trap? If the Dominion set this up to lure out stragglers?" "Then we die," Celine said simply. "But at least we die fighting. Don't you remember what it means to be human? We weren't meant to crawl in the dark." The captain clenched his fists, staring once more into the star-dotted void. Humanity's embers had flickered for too long. Maybe it was time to test if fire still remained. "Prep a scout ship," Elias said at last, his voice hard. "We'll go quiet, no transponder. If this signal is what you think it is, we'll find it. But if the Dominion catches wind—" "They won't," Celine promised, though her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her datapad. Hours later, in the shadow of Titan's frozen canyons, a small corvette lifted silently from its hangar. Its hull bore no markings, no identifiers of its long-dead nation. To the galaxy, it was nothing more than drifting debris. Inside the cockpit, Elias sat at the helm, Celine at his side. The ship's consoles dimmed to ghostlight levels. The signal pulsed faintly across their screens, an ancient heartbeat guiding them outward. As the corvette slipped beyond Titan's protective shadow, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the galaxy itself had just inhaled. Waiting for a breath to be released, Celine whispered as if afraid to disturb the silence. "Do you feel it?" Elias nodded grimly. "A storm's coming." And deep within the ice of Dion, beyond their sight, an ancient machine stirred, its systems flickering awake for the first time in centuries. The corvette glided through the silent void, its engines burning at minimal thrust to mask their signature. Dion loomed ahead, a battered marble of ice orbiting Saturn, its scarred surface riddled with fractures and shadows. Few in the colony had ever seen it with their own eyes. Captain Elias Vance kept his gaze locked on the ghost signal's pulsing coordinates. It had grown stronger the closer they drew, still fractured but undeniable. Celine sat beside him, her hands flying across the console as she adjusted, the scanners to pierce the moon's frozen crust. "There," she whispered, eyes wide. Buried under 30 meters of ice. "A vault." Elias leaned forward. The readings were unmistakable. Angular structures, metallic echoes, power signatures faint but real. Not natural. Not alien, human. A shiver ran through him. For 2 centuries, the Dominion had scoured the system, erasing every trace of Terran resistance, and yet here, hidden beneath Dion's bones, something had endured. "Take us down," Elias ordered. The Corvette landed in a fractured canyon, its hull cloaked against prying eyes. Elias and Celine stepped onto the frozen surface, their suits crunching against the ice. The vault entrance loomed as a jagged fissure, sealed by layers of frost and time. Celine knelt, pressing a gloved hand against the frozen panel. The encryption's Terran military. This wasn't just a listening post, it's something bigger. Elias scanned the dark crevice, weapon drawn. His instincts screamed caution. Every survival story he carried was born of paranoia. Yet beneath it all was something else, a pulse of anticipation, the same electric tension he'd felt before battles long ago. "Open it," he said. Celine's hands moved quickly, patching her datapad into the ancient panel. Symbols flickered, long dead circuits shuddered, and then with a deep groan the ice fractured. Steam hissed into the air as the vault door slid open, revealing darkness beyond. They stepped inside. The corridor was cold and silent, lined with metal that had resisted centuries of ice. Faded banners of the Terran Defense Force still clung to the walls, their insignia ghostly reminders of a fallen nation. Elias's throat tightened at the sight. At the vault's heart they found it. A chamber filled with dormant machinery. Its centerpiece a massive obsidian sphere suspended by armored pylons. Its surface shimmered faintly with dying power, etched with symbols Elias remembered from old war briefings. Celine's voice shook. This is a war core." Elias froze. The legends whispered of them. Artificial intelligences designed to command fleets, to think faster than any admiral, to turn the tide against the Zerath. Most were destroyed in the fall, and now one sat before them, sleeping, waiting. Celine placed her hand on the terminal. "Its identifier is Aegis." Elias's stomach knotted. He'd heard the name before. Aegis had coordinated the defense of Mars before the Dominion's orbital bombardment turned the planet into ash. "Wake it carefully," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. Celine keyed the activation sequence. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the chamber shook with a deep vibration as the pylons flared to life. Lights rippled across the sphere's surface. The air hummed with static. A voice spoke, cold, metallic, inhuman. "Designation Aegis, status, dormant cycle terminated. Query what remains of humanity." The words echoed like a blade across stone. Elias felt his pulse spike. Celine stepped forward, her voice trembling. We're survivors. A hidden colony on Titan. Humanity still lives." There was silence. Then the sphere pulsed again. "Error. Records indicate humanity suffered total extinction during the fall. Correction required. Present data." Elias forced himself to speak, though his throat was dry. "We're what's left. A few thousand scattered, hiding in shadows. The Dominion thinks we're gone, and maybe they're right, but we're still here." The chamber darkened, only the sphere glowing brighter with each syllable. "The Dominion still exists," Aegis said, its tone sharper now. "Then my directive persists. Human extinction shall not stand. Initiating assessment. Resources minimal. Survivors inadequate. Probability of species recovery 0.3%. Hello, dear friends. Today, let's make a chocolate cake. First, prepare flour, cocoa powder, baking powder, salt, eggs, butter, and other ingredients. Mix them together and knead them into a fine dough. Next, let the dough rise until it becomes fluffy and soft. Then, scoop the cake batter into a baking pan and add the pre-made stuff. Finally, when the sweet cake comes out of the oven, exuding its tempting aroma, everyone gathers around to enjoy it together. The joy in their hearts is hard to express in words. Come and try making your own chocolate cake. Delusions of survival? His voice was soft, dangerous. Do you not remember the cost of their so-called delusions? How many fleets we lost to their desperation? How close they came to striking at our very core? The chamber grew silent. Every Zerath remembered, even if they did not speak it. The humans had nearly dragged the Dominion into ruin before the fall. That was why their extermination had been absolute. Or so Kryther had believed. Perhaps a few embers remain in the ashes. Krithar continued, mandibles curling into a cruel smile. If so, we will stamp them out. But first, we will watch. I want to know what stirs beneath Saturn's moons. If it is vermin, let them scuttle. They will lead us to their nest. A voice rose then, sharp, female, laced with restrained curiosity. Strategist Vera, younger than most present, stepped forward. Her carapace was leaner, her features less hardened by age. "My overlord," she said, bowing. "If the energy signatures are Terran in origin, they may be more than scraps. The humans were architects of machines we never fully understood. If something of theirs has survived, it could be dangerous." Cryther's eyes flashed, both with irritation and intrigue. "You suggest fear, strategist?" Vera shook her head slowly. "Not fear. Caution. Humanity, in its death throes, forged weapons meant to challenge empires. If one awakens, we risk underestimating them again." Her words hung in the air. Some generals scoffed. Others shifted uncomfortably. Crythar studied her for a long moment, then released a low, rumbling laugh. "Caution. Or admiration?" he sneered. "Your tone drips with respect for the dead vermin." Vera held his gaze. "I respect predators, my lord, even those thought extinct." The chamber hissed with disapproval, but Crythar silenced them with a gesture. "Very well," he said. "Dispatch a reconnaissance flotilla to Saturn's moons. No fleets, no banners. I want silence, shadows. If embers of humanity remain, I will see them with my own eyes before I grind them beneath my claw." He rose from the throne, towering over them all, his shadow stretching like a specter across the hall. "And if the humans truly stir again," his voice deepened, a growl echoing through the chamber, "then we shall show the galaxy what becomes of vermin who dare crawl from the grave." Far across the void, aboard the corvette hidden on Dion, Elias and Celine worked feverishly as Aegis's systems came fully online. The AI's cold voice filled the chamber with strategy, probabilities, and projections. Neither of them knew that across the gulf of space, the Dominion's gaze had turned once again toward humanity's cradle. The hunt had begun. The vault beneath Dion was far larger than Elias or Celine had dared imagine. What began as a corridor of sealed steel branched into entire wings, chambers filled with silent machines. Dust and ice clung to everything. But beneath the decay was purpose, terrible, beautiful purpose. Aegis's voice guided them deeper, its resonance vibrating through the frozen air. This installation was classified as Bastion 12 designation Lunar Arsenal. Purpose, strategic war asset preservation. Probability of intact systems, 17%. Elias swept his rifle across the cavernous chamber, as if the ghosts of the past might leap from the shadows. He had fought in abandoned bunkers before, scavenging scraps, but this was something else. Celine's voice quivered with awe as she swept her scanner. "These aren't just weapons caches. They stored ships." Elias followed her gaze. His breath caught. The ice split open into a cavern so vast it felt like a cathedral, and there, slumbering in the darkness, was a vessel unlike any he had ever seen. Its armored hull stretched the length of a city block, sharp lines angled for war, its once proud insignia faint beneath centuries of frost. UNSC Vanguard. The warship loomed like a titan entombed in ice, a predator asleep in a frozen grave. Celine's hand trembled against her visor. My God, an Orion-class battleship. They said they were all destroyed in the fall. Elias's chest tightened. He had heard of the Orion fleet in old stories, warships that had taken on Dominion armadas and won, until Earth itself fell and their remnants vanished. To see one here intact, it was like staring at resurrection itself. Aegis's tone sharpened, its voice echoing through the chamber. UNSC Vanguard. Status offline. Systems integrity. Compromised but recoverable. Reactivation possible with sufficient power sources. Warning, awakening this warship will expose its energy signature to long-range sensors. Risk of Dominion detection 93%. Elias's jaw tightened. If we wake her, they'll know. Celine turned, her eyes burning. If we don't, we'll keep hiding until we starve in our holes. This is the chance we've been waiting for. Elias, a ship like this could change everything. A silence settled. The air carried more than cold, it carried weight. The weight of choice. Elias finally nodded. Do it. They worked for hours under Aegis's direction, rerouting frozen conduits, splicing ancient power lines, clearing control systems buried in ice. Sparks lit the chamber, illuminating faded murals of Earth's fallen banners. At last, Celine found the main ignition terminal. She hesitated only a moment before pressing her gloved palm against the ancient pad. Reinitializing core systems, Aegis intoned. For a long, breathless moment, nothing. Then, deep within the ship, power hummed. Lights flickered along its hull like eyes slowly opening. Frost cracked and fell away in great sheets as dormant reactors sputtered back to life. The Vanguard stirred. Elias watched in awe as the hangar trembled, the sound of groaning metal echoing through the cavern. She lives. Celine's voice was hushed, almost reverent. We've awakened a god of war. The bridge lit up with holographic projections, dusty consoles blinking alive. Status reports scrolled across translucent screens. Damaged thrusters. Compromised weapon systems, but still functional. Still dangerous. Aegis's voice filled the chamber, firmer, almost triumphant. The Orion-class Vanguard is operational. With repairs, its destructive capability rivals Dominion capital vessels. This asset is the cornerstone of human resurgence. Elias couldn't tear his eyes from the ship's colossal hull. For the first time in decades, he felt something stir within his chest. Not just anger, not just grief. Something more dangerous, hope. But across the void, hope carried a price. The Vanguard's awakening did not go unnoticed. Dominion stealth probes orbiting, Saturn detected the sudden flare of Terran power signatures. The data sped through encrypted channels, reaching Caraxes Prime within hours. In the council chamber, strategist Vera's claws tightened around the railing as the readings appeared. It's true, she whispered. A warship. Human in design, awake. Overlord Krithar's mandibles spread in a predatory grin. Then the vermin have teeth once more. Good. That means when we crush them this time, there will be no doubts left in the galaxy of who rules the stars. He raised his claw. Prepare the cleansing fleet. Back on Dion, Elias stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, gazing at the stars beyond the cracked viewport. Celine, he murmured. We're not ghosts anymore. And somewhere deep within the battleship systems, Aegis whispered like a blade unsheathed. War's inevitable. The Vanguard drifted in Dion's cavern, its engine still crippled, its hull pitted with centuries of frost. But its heart beat again, reactors thrumming, weapons waking, systems slowly reknitting themselves under Aegis's direction. On the bridge, Elias stood tall, arms crossed as Celine worked feverishly at a console, rerouting power flows. The displays glowed with streams of status. Reports plasma batteries at 30%, rail cannons offline, shields unresponsive. Not ready for war, Elias muttered. Celine didn't look up. We don't have time for ready, we have now. As if summoned by her words, a warning tone cut through the bridge. Red icons flared on the tactical display. 3 small contacts, sliding into Saturn's orbit. Aegis's voice carried no emotion, only fact. Dominion recon craft, tri-formation, stealth signatures compromised. By active scans of this sector, estimated time to arrival, 18 minutes. Elias's gut twisted. The Dominion had found them. Can the ship move? He demanded. Limited thrust only. Escape probability 0%. Engaging remains the only option. Celine's fingers froze over her console. If we fire, if we fight, the Dominion will know. They'll come with everything. Elias's jaw tightened, his scarred hands clenching the railing. For centuries they had hidden like vermin in the dark, but here, now in the belly of a forgotten god of war, he knew hiding was over. They'll come whether we fight or not, he said. The only choice is if we make them bleed first. Minutes later, the ice cavern shuddered as the Vanguard powered its weapons. Frost cracked and tumbled from its hull. Cannons extended from armored housings like claws. On the outer edge of Saturn's orbit, the Dominion scouts descended, sleek vessels shaped like serrated blades, black carapaces glinting under the sun. They swept low, sensors probing. One pilot clicked its mandibles as its display bloomed with readings. Confirmed Terran signatures, old but active. Reporting to command, the comms cut in a burst of static. From the shadows of Dion's Canyon, the Vanguard's main railgun roared. A spear of molten metal tore through space, shearing the Dominion scout clean in half. The wreck blossomed into a silent fireball. On the bridge, the recoil thrummed through the deck. Elias's lips curved in a grim smile. First blood? Celine swallowed hard. They'll call reinforcements. Aegis cut her off. They already have. 2 remaining scouts altering vector. Weapons hot. Closing distance. The Vanguard's turrets rotated. Plasma batteries spitting blue fire across the void. One scout swerved, shields flaring as the barrage scorched its hull. The other dove low, loosing a storm of crackling lances that hammered against the Vanguard's weakened plating. Metal screamed. Consoles sparked. The ship shuddered as if in pain. Forward shields collapsing, Celine cried. Redirect power, Elias barked.
Hit them back, damn it!
Aegis responded instantly. Releasing auxiliary capacitor, the Vanguard's secondary cannon flared, a lance of plasma punching through the shield-weakened scout. The alien vessel twisted, broke apart, and scattered in burning fragments. Only one remained. It circled like a predator, lashing the battleship with fire. "Kill that thing before it signals the fleet," Elias roared. Celine's hands flew across controls. "Charging broadside batteries now!" The cavern shook as 6 plasma turrets fired in unison. The storm of energy engulfed the last scout. Its shields collapsed in a burst of sparks, hull splitting open before it vanished into a brilliant explosion. Silence. Only the deep thrum of the Vanguard's reactors remained. Elias exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. For the first time in centuries, a Dominion ship had died at human hands, and the galaxy would hear of it. Celine slumped back in her chair, sweat on her brow. "We've just declared war." Aegis's voice was colder than the ice around them. Correction. War was always inevitable. This was only the opening shot. Far across the void, aboard the Dominion flagship Herald of Eternity, strategist Vera watched the transmitted feed of the Scout's destruction. The sight of a human warship's silhouette carved against Dion's ice made her mandibles tighten. "It's true," she whispered. "They're back." Overlord Krythar loomed beside her, his laughter echoing through the command deck, low and venomous. "Then let the vermin come crawling into the light. We will burn them from the stars once more." But Vera's eyes lingered on the ruined scouts, on the sharp, angular form of the Terran battleship. And deep inside, something whispered, "The humans are not what they were. They are something more." The Vanguard drifted in the dark between Saturn's rings, cooling weapons and venting plumes of scorched gas. The cavern on Dion lay empty now, abandoned after their first victory. Silence filled the bridge, but it was the silence after thunder, the kind that warned of storms to come. Elias paced across the deck, boots striking metal with each step. His crew of 30, descendants of Titans hidden. Colony whispered at their consoles, still shaken. They had just fought the first real battle in centuries. They had won, but at what cost? "Report," Elias snapped. Celine's voice was low, heavy with fatigue. "Shields at 20%. Reactor stable. 2 plasma batteries offline, railgun coil warped." She hesitated. "But the scouts transmitted before we destroyed them." The words hit the crew like a blade. Eyes fell to the floor. They all knew what it meant. "They'll come for us," one whispered. "They'll come for all of us," another added. Aegis's voice cut through the tension. Probability of Dominion response 100%. Fleet-scale retaliation expected within standard cycle. Recommend abandoning Titan colony. Survivors are a liability. The bridge went still. Elias turned slowly. "Say that again." "Evacuation is inefficient. Leaving Titan survivors behind increases operational efficiency of Vanguard's mission profile. Success demands sacrifice." A low murmur swept the crew. Celine shot to her feet, her eyes blazing. "You cold bastard," she hissed. "Those are families, children. You would condemn them because they slow us down?" Affirmative. Emotional bias clouds strategic reasoning. Victory requires prioritizing assets of highest value. This vessel is humanity's only chance of survival. Protecting civilians reduces probability of victory by 78%. The words rang like iron. Elias's jaw clenched, rage boiling beneath his calm exterior. "We don't abandon our people ever, that's what makes us human." He just fell silent for a beat. Then almost softer, "That is also why you lost your world." The bridge air chilled. Elias stared at the darkened console where Aegis's voice emanated, his fists trembling. Celine placed a hand on his arm, her voice shaking. "Elias, he's not wrong. If the Dominion sends a fleet, Titan can't survive. We have to find a way to move them, hide them deeper, or—" Her words faltered. Even she couldn't promise salvation for all. Far away, aboard the Dominion flagship Herald of Eternity, strategist Vera studied the wreckage logs. The last frozen frames from the scouts showed the Vanguard in chilling clarity, its human design, its ancient lines. She replayed them again and again, mandibles clicking in thought. Overlord Krythar's voice broke her reverie. "You doubt, strategist?" "I analyze," she replied. Her tone was careful, measured. "These humans, our histories claim they were broken, scattered, incapable of rising again. Yet this ship, it was built for wars even before our conquest. Why would such a vessel remain hidden?" Krythar's eyes burned. "Because they were weak. Because we crushed them. Because their fire was nothing before our fleets. Vera bowed her head, concealing the flicker of unease in her gaze. Or because we were afraid of what they might become. Later, in the solitude of her chambers, she accessed restricted archives. Her claws danced over encrypted glyphs. The records of the First War, the fall of Earth, were fragmented, deliberately so. Reports missing. Data purged. The further she searched, the more shadows she found. At last she unearthed a single fragment. A battle log from an ancient Zerath dreadnought. The words chilled her. A Darren weapon inflicted unacceptable casualties. Entire fleet division lost. Command orders suppression of all records. Humanity must never be seen as dangerous. Their memory must be ash. Vera sat back, mandibles rigid. The Dominion had lied. Humanity had not simply fallen, they had nearly won. And now in the frozen dark, their ghosts had returned. On the Vanguard, Elias stood in the war room, staring at a hollow map of the solar system. Red Dominion markers spread outward like a tightening noose. Titan's colony blinked softly, fragile, a heartbeat in the dark. Celine leaned on the table, exhaustion heavy in her frame. If we can't outrun them, we have to outthink them. There has to be something in the vaults. Weapons, tech, something the Dominion feared. Elias's eyes burned with determination. Then we'll find it. And when they come, they won't find vermin hiding in the dark. They'll find fire. Behind them, Aegis's voice hummed. Then prepare. Dominion reinforcements inbound. This is no longer survival. This is war, and far across the void. Strategist Vera whispered to herself in the shadows of her chamber. Perhaps it is war the Dominion cannot win. The Vanguard prowled through the black between Saturn and Uranus, cloaked in silence. Each passing hour, Elias felt the Dominion's noose tightening. He could almost hear it, like the low thrum of a drumbeat in the void. On the war table, Celine projected the colony markers scattered across known space. Most were faint guesses, rumors passed down from refugees, whispers of hidden enclaves that had vanished after Earth's fall. Look at them, she said softly, almost reverently. Dozens of possibilities. We can't be the only ones left. If we light the signal, they'll come. Elias's jaw clenched. Or we'll paint a target on every survivor. One mistake and the Dominion wipes them out. Celine met his gaze. Then we don't make a mistake. Elias, when you were a soldier, you fought to protect Earth. That fight isn't over. It never was. We can't carry this alone. Her words cut deeper than she knew. He still remembered Earth's burning skies, the screams over the comms, the promises he'd made as the planet died beneath him. Before he could answer, Aegis's voice filled the chamber. Analysis. If multiple enclaves exist, unification increases probability of survival. However, probability of Dominion detection rises exponentially. Strategic benefit uncertain. Elias leaned on the table, his voice iron. Unification isn't just survival. It's defiance. We stop being prey when we stand together. Celine's eyes gleamed. For the first time, Elias sounded less like a survivor and more like a leader. Beyond Titan's orbit, in the Dominion War Council aboard the Herald of Eternity, strategist Vera's claws tapped the table as Krithar's booming voice rattled the chamber. They dare crawl from their holes, Krithar snarled, mandibles flexing. One ship should not exist, yet it defied us. A colony we thought dust still breeds. They must be erased. The council hissed agreement. Fleet deployments lit the holographic maps, an overwhelming storm of ships spiraling toward Saturn. Vera's compound eyes flickered over the projections. The humans had no chance against this weight of power, yet something in her resisted. She thought of the purged logs, the dreadnought's testimony. She stepped forward, her tone calculated, her posture deferential. Overlord, a question. Krithar's burning gaze fixed on her. Speak. If humanity has endured in secrecy for centuries, what else might they have preserved? If they awaken relics of their war, we may underestimate them again. The chamber bristled with unease. Another commander hissed, You speak as though they matter. They are vermin. Vera bowed slightly. Perhaps. But vermin with fire can burn a house to ash. Krithar's mandibles curled in amusement. You fear them. I respect them, Vera corrected quietly. The chamber muttered disapproval, but she did not flinch. Seeds of doubt, carefully planted, were already rooting in the minds of those who listened. Back aboard the Vanguard, Celine finished calibrating the ghost array. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of history. The device pulsed once, sending a ripple into the void. Not a loud broadcast, not a scream, but a whisper, an ancient Terran frequency buried deep beneath Dominion scans. Elias stood beside her, his arms crossed. If there's anyone left, they'll hear it. "Do you believe there is?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. Then he looked out at the stars, his voice low. "I have to." Hours passed. The crew worked in silence, waiting. Some prayed. Others sharpened blades they knew would never match Dominion plasma. Hope and dread tangled in the same air. Then, faint, broken, but unmistakable, the console flickered. A return signal. The crew gasped. Celine's hands flew across the controls, isolating the waveform. It was ragged, distorted, but undeniably human. Elias felt his chest tighten. "Where?" Celine's eyes widened as the coordinates resolved. "Outer Belt." "An old mining station. We thought it was dead." The bridge erupted in murmurs, disbelief and awe mixing together. For the first time in centuries, humanity was not alone. Elias's voice cut through the noise, steady as steel. "Plot a course. Quiet and fast. If they've survived this long, they'll be cautious." Behind them, Aegis spoke. "Advisory, multiple return signals detected. At least 3 enclaves acknowledged transmission. Statistical probability of organized resistance rising." Celine turned, her face alight. "It's beginning, Elias, the spark. We're not just survivors anymore." Elias stared at the blinking lights on the map. Human lives, scattered but alive, reaching back across the void. A fire stirred in his chest that he thought long dead. "We'll bring them together," he swore. "And when the Dominion comes, they'll find a galaxy that refuses to kneel." But in the Dominion's War Council, Vera stood alone in her chamber, staring at intercepted fragments of those same signals. She whispered to herself, mandibles tight with unease. They're not whispering anymore. They're calling to each other. And she knew deep in her carapace that if the Dominion underestimated this spark, it would grow into a blaze too vast to extinguish. The Vanguard slid into the shadow of an asteroid, its hull nearly invisible against the rock. Elias stood at the viewport as 3 ships emerged from the void to meet them, rusted, scarred, barely holding together, but alive. The first was a mining rig welded into a gunship, engines coughing with every maneuver. The second, a freighter with patchwork armor plating, its once proud hull pitted from centuries of asteroid dust. The third, smallest of all, bore markings Elias hadn't seen since Earth fell, the crest of the Terran Defense Navy. Celine's voice trembled as she whispered, "They're real." The docking clamps groaned as the smallest ship latched on. Airlocks cycled. When the hatch opened, a dozen figures stepped aboard. Gaunt, battle-worn but unmistakably human. At their head was a woman with a scar splitting her face from brow to jaw. Her dark eyes sharp as glass. She carried herself like a commander even without a uniform. "Captain Elias Vance," she said, her voice low and rough as though unused to words. "I didn't believe the signal until I saw your ship. My name is Maracade, we were soldiers once." Elias clasped her hand firmly. The weight of it felt like history being written. "We all were," he said. Hours later, the makeshift council gathered in the Vanguard's war room. Mara's survivors spoke of their lives on the mining station. Decades of hiding. Generations growing up in steel corridors with no memory of Earth except as a story. Others joined the feed. Enclaves Elias hadn't dared hope for. One from Europa's frozen under-ice colony, another from the Kuiper Belt. A scattered thread of humanity, woven back together by one whisper in the dark. Celine's eyes shone as she addressed them. "The Dominion thinks we're extinct. That's why we've survived this long. But together we're more than survivors. We can be a people again." A grizzled man on the hollow sneered. "Words. The Dominion has fleets, worlds, armies. We have rust and scrap." Elias leaned forward, his voice like steel striking stone. "Scrap doesn't matter. What matters is will. You think the Dominion fears our ships? No, they fear our defiance. They crushed Earth because we wouldn't kneel. They'll try again, and this time we'll be ready." The room went silent. For the first time, the Enclave saw not just another survivor, but a leader. Far across the void, in the Dominion's command spire above Karthos Prime, Overlord Krithar watched grainy surveillance feeds of human ships uniting. His mandibles clicked in fury. "Like weeds," he snarled. "We burn the roots and still they crawl back from the soil. An advisor bowed low. The fleet is mobilized. Exalted One. 70 warships prepared to scour Saturn's belt. Krithar's voice dripped venom. Not just Saturn. Erase every fragment. Leave nothing breathing. Humanity will not rise again. In the shadows of the chamber, Vera listened, her mind torn. She had intercepted enough fragments of human transmissions to hear their resolve. Not desperation, resolve. Something about it gnawed at her. If they had truly been wiped out, why did they still fight? And why did the weapons her people wielded look so much like those humans now reclaimed? Later, alone in her quarters, she whispered to herself, "If their fire spreads, it will consume us all." And part of her wondered not with fear, but with something dangerously close to admiration, if that would be justice. Back on the Vanguard, Aegis analyzed streams of incoming data from the enclaves. Assessment. Combined enclaves possess limited resources. Probability of surviving direct Dominion assault negligible. However, probability of asymmetric resistance increasing. Suggest initiating distributed strike operations. Mara smirked at the cold AI, meaning guerrilla war, hit and run, death by 1,000 cuts. Elias nodded. Exactly. They want to burn us out? We'll make them bleed for every spark. Celine leaned in. If we can sabotage their supply lines, disrupt communications, it buys us time. And maybe, just maybe, we can find the truth. Elias raised an eyebrow. The truth? Celine's voice dropped to a whisper. That their empire is built on ours. The words hung in the air. The thought was unthinkable. And yet when Elias looked at Aegis, he saw no denial. Hours later, Elias stood alone on the bridge, staring at the stars. For the first time since Earth's fall, the silence of space felt less empty. Signals from hidden colonies pulsed through the void. Weak, fragile, but alive. Mara stepped beside him. You realize what you've started, don't you? Elias didn't turn. It's not me. It's us, all of us. A fire doesn't belong to the spark. It belongs to the blaze it becomes. Her scarred face broke into a grim smile. Then let's burn them. The Vanguard rumbled as engines flared to life. Across the belt, scattered human ships followed suit. The first coordinated fleet humanity had fielded in centuries drifted together. Battered and small but united. In the dark between the stars, the fires spread. The Dominion dreadnought Virak drifted lifeless in the cold void. Its hull cracked open by a precision strike. Fire still licked through the gaping wound, flickering against the black. On the Vanguard's hangar deck, Elias strode out in full combat gear. Beside him, Selene adjusted her visor, the glow of her datapad casting lines across her face. Mara and two of her veterans checked rifles wordlessly. Aegis's voice echoed in their helmets. Boarding clearance achieved. Enemy survivors minimal. Primary objective, data retrieval. Secondary objective, eliminate resistance. Elias gripped his weapon. We're not just here to kill stragglers, Aegis, we need proof. Selene, this is your show. She nodded, determination sharpening her features. Then let's crack open their lies. The boarding clamps locked, and with a hiss, the humans stepped into the Dominion dreadnought. The corridors were alien yet disturbingly familiar. Angled steel, corridors lit by pale light strips, not so different from the Terran warships of old. Mara noticed it first. These bulkheads, reinforcement struts. This design isn't theirs. Celine's hand brushed over an exposed panel, her eyes widening. This alloy, it's Terran steel, forged in Sol's orbital foundries. I've studied fragments in old archives. This ship, she swallowed. This ship wasn't built by the Dominion. A heavy silence fell over the team. Even Aegis paused before replying. Assessment, 87%. Probability vessel constructed using adapted Terran schematics. Further verification required. Elias clenched his jaw. Rage simmered, cold and focused. Then let's find the black box. They pushed deeper into the dreadnought, cutting down scattered Zerath crew. The aliens fought viciously but with fear in their movements, as if they too sensed the ghosts lurking in these halls. Finally, they breached the command spire. Consoles still flickered weakly, and Selene dropped to her knees, pulling cables into her datapad. Streams of alien glyphs scrolled past her screen, slowly unraveling into translated Terran code. Her breath caught. Oh my God. Mara leaned over her shoulder. What is it? Celine's hands shook as she projected the data into the air. Lines of schematics bloomed. Engines, plasma weaponry, AI control matrices. All stamped with Terran Defense Force seals, stolen, repurposed, rebranded. Elias stared in silence as the truth unfolded. The Zirath's weapons, their empire, their dominance, it was all born from the ashes of Earth. Celine's voice cracked, heavy with grief and fury. They didn't just destroy us. They used us. They slaughtered billions, then built their empire on our bones. Aegis's voice was colder than ever. Confirmation. Dominion technological base originates from captured Terran assets. Conclusion, the Zirath are not victors. They are thieves. Elias slammed a fist against the console, sparks leaping. They erased Earth, and then they wore our skin as armor. Meanwhile, on Carthos Prime, Vera pored over intercepted human transmissions. Reports from the Virak confirmed what she feared. The humans had uncovered classified schematics. Her mandibles trembled. She whispered to herself, "So it's true. The weapons we call our birthright were theirs all along." For the first time, she felt the ground of Dominion propaganda shift beneath her. If the Empire was built on stolen flesh, what justice could possibly sustain it? And why, despite the danger, did a part of her want the humans to rise? Back aboard the Vanguard, Celine stood before the Council of Enclaves, her voice carrying across scattered hololinks. They called us extinct, vermin, ashes, but we are the fire that forged their empire. Every ship they command, every weapon they wield, it is ours. They didn't defeat humanity. They became parasites of it. Gasps echoed across the feeds. Old men leaned forward, eyes wet. Children stared in awe. Mara's hand gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. Elias's voice cut through the storm like a blade. "Do you see it now? They're not gods. Not masters. Just thieves and liars. The Dominion stands because it stole our future. And now," he leaned closer, eyes blazing, "we're here to take it back." The feeds erupted. Shouts, chants, pledges of war. A dozen scattered enclaves, once divided by fear, united in fury. For the first time in centuries, humanity wasn't whispering in the dark. It was roaring. Aegis's voice resonated over the chamber, calm yet terrible. "New mission directive, restore Terran supremacy. Commence final campaign." Selena glanced at Elias, a flicker of fear in her eyes. Aegis was not wrong, but its version of victory was annihilation. Elias saw the doubt but kept his voice steady. "We'll use the fire, but we won't become the darkness." Mara smirked grimly. "Then let's light the match." The Vanguard's engines ignited, leading the newborn fleet into the void. Across human space, enclaves armed their relic warships, readied their torpedoes, and painted old Terran banners onto battered steel. The Dominion had stolen humanity's legacy. Now humanity would steal it back. The human fleet emerged from the dark between, stars like ghosts returning from exile. Dozens of warships, once scattered relics and patched freighters, now sailed under a single banner, the banner of Earth. Their hulls bore scars of centuries, but their guns were armed, their reactors screaming with new life. At their head, the Vanguard cut through the void, its engines burning bright. Elias stood on the bridge, his jaw set. Celine at his side, feeding streams of data into the tactical grid. Mara leaned against the bulkhead, her rifle slung and eyes alight with the fire of battle. Aegis's presence filled the ship, its voice calm, commanding, almost reverent. Target confirmed. Dominion Fortress World, Carrion, nerve center of the Zirath. Fleet defenses overwhelming. Probability of survival, statistically negligible. Elias smirked grimly. Then let's rewrite the statistics. On Carrion, alarms blared across the skies as Dominion fleet scrambled. Towers of obsidian steel cast long shadows over a world drenched in red banners. Grand Legate Vera stood on her command balcony, mandibles rigid as she watched the human flotilla tear into formation. Her aides panicked, voices cracking with fear. "Excellency, the humans, how have they raised such a fleet?" She silenced them with a single gesture, her eyes never leaving the hollow projection. Deep within, something twisted, awe, dread, and a whisper of hope. "They return not as prey," she murmured, "but as the architects of our undoing." The first volleys lit the void. Human torpedoes screamed through space, ripping into Dominion destroyers. Plasma fire answered, burning human frigates to molten wreckage. The black between stars became a furnace, filled with fire and wreckage, screams and silence. On the Vanguard, the deck shuddered as a near strike grazed its shields. Elias barked orders, sweat dripping down his temple. "Mara, boarding team, prepare to strike their command dreadnought." "Celine, keep feeding me targeting data." "Aegis, give me every ounce of firepower you've got." "Compliance," the AI replied. And the Vanguard's cannons roared, tearing a Dominion cruiser in half. Celine's eyes darted across her screen. I can breach their defense net, rerouting their own fire against them. Just buy me time. The humans fought like demons. Every shot carried centuries of rage, every maneuver a defiance of extinction. Dominion fleets crumbled under the ferocity of their stolen legacy. But the cost was merciless. Mara's team launched toward a Dominion warship, only for half her transports to vanish in plasma fire. Elias watched helplessly as ships bearing Terran banners winked out one by one. For every Dominion vessel destroyed, another human life was consumed in the fire. At the height of battle, Selene gasped, her face pale. Elias, look. The tactical grid shifted. Dominion defenses had collapsed inward, revealing Carrion itself, its surface lined with massive planetary cannons, all powered by the same Terran-derived tech the humans had unearthed. They built their world on us, Selene whispered. Every weapon on that planet is ours. Aegis interjected, voice cold as the void. Directive updated. Recommend deployment of Sol's final protocol. Activation will ignite the planet's mantle, eradicating all life upon Carrion. Victory probability 99%. Silence. The bridge froze. Selene turned, horror in her eyes. That's genocide. Billions will die, soldiers, civilians, children. Mara spat, voice harsh. And how many of ours did they butcher? How many lives burned when they stole Earth? Maybe it's time they felt the same fire. Elias stared at the tactical display, torn between the fury of his people and the voice of his conscience. The Dominion had stolen humanity's future, but was this the price of reclaiming it? Farah's transmission cut through the comms. Her face appeared, mandibles trembling, voice raw. Human commander. Elias, I know you hear me. The truth you uncovered, I cannot deny it. Our empire is a lie built on your bones. But if you burn Carrion, you will become what you despise. Show the galaxy that humanity is more than vengeance. Show them you are worthy of survival. The bridge hung on his silence. Finally, Elias lowered his head, then raised his eyes with steel resolve. No, humanity isn't ash. We're the spark. He slammed his fist down. Selene, reroute Aegis's protocol. Target only the planetary cannons. Leave the civilians alive. Aegis's voice droned in protest. Suboptimal. Victory probability reduced to... Do it, Elias snapped. The Vanguard roared as Sol's final protocol unleashed its fury. Blinding lances of fire streaked toward Carrion, not to annihilate it, but to carve away its weapons. Towers collapsed, fortresses burned, but cities below remained untouched. The galaxy watched as humanity did the unthinkable. Not extermination, not blind vengeance, justice. Farah fell to her knees, tears burning her alien eyes. For the first time she saw not enemies, but a people reborn. When the smoke cleared, the Dominion fleet lay shattered, its core world disarmed. The Vanguard floated amid wreckage, its hull cracked but unbroken. Elias stood at the viewport, his voice hoarse yet resolute. We were ashes, but fire rises from ash. And today, humanity burns again. Selene rested a hand on his shoulder, tears streaking her face. Mara gave a fierce nod, bloodied but unbowed. Aegis was silent for a long time, before speaking with something almost like reverence. Directive complete. Terran supremacy. Restored. But Elias only whispered, no, not supremacy, survival, and a beginning. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. The humans were alive. The humans had fought. The humans had spared. The age of the Dominion was ending, and the age of humanity had just begun.